Hello world, I'm coming to you live from my kitchen and I'm here to make the Wentworth season 1 episode 2 review video, and we're gonna just get right into this shit. So the season 1 episode 2 review video begins now. So we start off this episode, which is titled Fly Me Away. We begin this episode with Doreen being questioned by the authorities. You know what I'm saying? So they're asking her, what do you know? You know what I'm saying? What did you see? And she's telling them what she knows, which is a whole lot of nothing. You know what I'm saying? She don't know jack shit. All she knows is that she turned that corner and saw B. Smith on the floor lying next to a dead, bloody Meg Jackson. All right? So then the next little clip that we see, is a hand, and we see that somebody's watching this interrogation footage, you know what I'm saying, on a laptop, and they're fast forwarding. So we get to the part of B. Smith. So now we see B. Smith sitting there, and she's still in the bloodied clothes, and they're taking her hoodie and putting it into a bag, I'm assuming as evidence, right? So now we're back to Doreen in her room, and she's being questioned. And the cop is just, questioning her. Were there loud noises? Did you hear B. Smith and Mrs. Jackson arguing? And Doreen is like, no, damn it. I didn't hear a damn thing. So now we see what's going on. So we see a clip of Will Jackson sitting there, his hand on the laptop. And we know now that it's Will Jackson who's sitting there watching this interrogation footage. You know what I'm saying? At home on his laptop. Will fast forwards to B. Smith being questioned. And the cops are telling her, can you please stand up? And they're taking DNA swabs of her inner cheek. We see Will watching the interrogation footage again, you know what I'm saying? And the cops are telling B, tell us what happened. And B's telling them, I was chasing this little fucking girl. I was scared something might happen to her. And 1 minute I was running, the next minute I'm on the floor, covered in blood. And the cop is like on the floor, kneeling over Meg Jackson's body. And B's like, listen, I know how this looks, but I didn't do it. All right. And the cop is like, 24 hours earlier, Mrs. Jackson slotted you for trafficking. You must have been pretty upset. And B was like, no, I wasn't. And this sad music, like piano music, starts playing, right? And the cops are like, we all know what happens when you get angry. You lose control, like that night with your husband. And B was like, yo, my husband, he tried to kill himself, all right? It wasn't me. And so she's like, basically, I didn't do it. I didn't kill her. And that's that. You know what I'm saying? Stop asking me this shit because I didn't do it. And so Will, he's seen enough. He shut his laptop. You know what I'm saying? And he's just sitting there, mad and sad. So we see him on the sofa in his boxer shorts, and he's just there like a lump of a man. You know what I'm saying? And the camera pans out, and we see like all the dead flowers that he has received in this time of his grief. You know what I'm saying? We see a photo on the table of him and Meg Jackson during happier times. So the next scene, we get some shots of outside of the prison. So now we're at Wentworth Correctional Center. We're outside the prison. We're seeing like different shots of the prison, and then we see a magazine page that's hung up somewhere, and it's of 2 tattooed women hugging one another. When I saw this, I remember thinking this has to be Frankie. This has something to do with Frankie. Sure enough, it did. So we see fingers touching a scar. And it is Frankie, because we know last episode she got sliced up in her chest area. Jax was coming for those boobs. Thank God Boomer saved the day. So we see her touching a scar. You know what I'm saying? It's Frankie. She's inspecting the wound that Jax gave her on her boob during the riots, when all of a sudden Doreen comes into the doorway of Frankie's cell. And she says to her, hey, you in on this? And Frankie grabs a letter from a pile of mail that's on her bed, and she says, fan mail. She holds up the letter and says fan mail. Like, she como quien dice, I can't come to whatever it is you're inviting me to because I'm busy reading fan mail, okay? And Doreen is like, oh, can't it wait? Please. And Frankie looks up at Dor like she could give 2 fucks what Doreen is saying. And she don't say nothing. And Doreen is like, Frankie. And so Frankie smiles. She puts down the letter. She grabs a chocolate bar from underneath her mattress and throws it at Doreen. And she tells her, it's for the grommet. And she says, shh, like, don't tell nobody I'm being nice. You know what I'm saying? I have an image to uphold. So Doreen smiles and she leaves and she walks out back into the unit and she tells everyone, are we ready? And Liz is like, what about Frankie? And Dora's like, oh, she's not doing it. And Booms is like, surprise, sir fucking prize. And Liz is like, hey, well, 3's enough. So then we hear attention compound. Count will commence in 10 minutes. So Kaya's sitting there laughing and shit. And then Tony is like, yo, we better get a move on. And Dora's telling Kaya, whose birthday is it? And Kaya's like, mine. And all the women cheer with glee, you know what I'm saying? And Dora's like, and what do you want? And Kaya's like, hot potato. And Doreen is like, hit it, B. So B goes. She turns on the radio. And all the women begin like singing and doing this little dance that goes a little something like this. Hot potato, hot potato, hot potato, hot potato, hot potato, hot potato, 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 cold spaghetti, and blah, blah, blah. So they're singing this fucking dumbass song. Boomer looks like she's so confused as far as how the movements of the hand dancing goes. Frankie and Kim end up coming out at one point just to watch from the sidelines, you know what I'm saying? Tony comes with the fucking birthday cake and puts it on the table. They all say happy birthday to Kaya, start clapping. We find out that Kaya has turned 3 years old. 3, all right? She's been in prison for 3 years. This is crazy. In the midst of all this joy, Will Jackson walks into the unit. And so the first one to see him standing there like a menace to society is Liz Birdsworth. And she says, oh, Mr. Jackson, welcome back. Oh, so you must be here for the head count. Okay, come on, girls. And Will is ignoring Liz and looking dead in B's face. But the women now all gather to the, their fucking doorways of their cells. And Liz is telling Will Jackson, it's little Kaya's birthday today. And we all got a bit wiggly, didn't we, girls? I love that part. When she says that they got wiggly, that means they got loose and they were having a good time. Wiggly. I love that. So Doreen is like, it's nice to see you, Mr. Jackson. And Will, he's just looking at B. Smith. And she's looking at him like mad nervous and shit. She can't meet his gaze. She has to turn away at some point. So that was the ending of that scene. So now we're out in front of the prison and there is a slew of reporters there ready to report on what happened to Meg Jackson. Like they're there hoping to get like some type of something so that they could put in their damn fucking news report. And then we see Vera in her vehicle. So she's inside her car. She looks nervous as shit. She gets out of the car and is immediately bombarded by these reporters. And so there's like a female reporter. And she's like, Miss Bennett, any comment on the investigation into Mrs. Jackson's death? Do the police have a suspect? Mrs. Bennett! Come on, Miss Bennett, give us something. And Vera don't say jack shit. She walks right past these motherfuckers into the prison. You know what I'm saying? We see her waiting to get buzzed in. They buzz her in and that's it. That's it. So now we're in the dining hall and we see all of the women of H1 sitting at the table. Will is up in the dining hall as well. And then Doreen says, 4 weeks isn't long. Maybe he's gonna be governor. Miss Bennett's only temporary, isn't she? B says, would they do that? And Joy's like, why not? And Boomer's like, cause he'd be replacing his dead wife. And then Liz is like, booms, shh. And she motions over to Will, like telling Boomer, shut the fuck up before Will hears you. You can't be saying these types of things. Boomer's talking about how she thinks that Jax is the one that killed Meg Jackson. In that moment, Jax walks into the motherfucking cafeteria. So then Kim comes running over to the table and gives them a birthday prezi for Kaya. And she's like, it's from the girls in B block. And Doreen is like, oh, thank you. Kim basically gave her a napkin with some chocolate bars inside. And when Boomer sees them, she's like, oh, they're not going to last. She's saying this as she's grabbing one of the chocolate bars. And Liz is like, Boomer, put it back. And Boomer's like, what? She gets pancakes in the playroom and we get this crap. Fair's fair. And Doreen is like, Boomer, it's her birthday. And Boomer eats the fucking chocolate. So Boomer just don't give two shits and she eats the chocolate. While Liz is in the background talking about how Kai is going to love going to the zoo today. And then Boomer's like, she lives in a bloody zoo, eh? So then suddenly Doreen looks and she sees Tony walking into the lunchroom. And she looks quite stoned, okay? And the women see her. And Doreen is like, oh, shit. And Boomer's like, oh, wow. And Doreen is like, yo, sit down before the screws see you. Tony sits down and then tells Doreen, relax. And Doreen is like, you're pinned. I told you if you're going to do that crap, you should stay in the unit. Can someone please get us some brekkie before they get sus? which means, can somebody please go get this bitch a tray of breakfast before the fucking screws start getting suspicious, okay? And Frankie's like, yeah, I'll get it. So Frankie gets up to get Tony's high ass some fucking breakfast, right? And Jax is also on the line getting some food. Jax looks at Frankie and she's like, how's the boob? And Frankie looks at Jax and says, tight, unlike your face. And I laughed so hard when I first saw that. I was like, you know what, Frankie? I love you. So then Jax tells her, drop by the unit. We're always happy to pick up where we left off. And she walks away. In that moment, B walks up to get some food. And Frankie looks at B and she says, poor old slag. She keeps hitting on me and I keep saying no. And then she walks away. So, but before she walks away, she looks like past. She fucking looks past B to something that's behind B. And B turns around and she sees that it's Will Jackson. So B goes to Mr. Jackson and she says, Mr. Jackson, I just wanted to say I'm really sorry about this thing that's happened. And Will is like, yeah, of course you are. And she walks away because Will don't give two fucks about her apology. Meanwhile, in the yard, we see the inmates. We see some guards as well. And then we see Doreen, Tony, and Kaya. So Doreen is like, are you trying to get sprung? And Tony's like, stop stressing. Next thing you know, Will shows up. And he's like, Doreen. Doreen hears him say her name. And she tells Tony, keep your head down and walk straight back to the unit. Tony does as she's told. And then Doreen turns around and she's like, hi, Mr. Jackson. I've got something from Kaya. And so Kaya gives Will a drawing. It's of 3 different people with the teal uniforms. The one in the middle has black hair. I don't know who these people are. They don't look familiar to me, these drawings. I can't identify these characters. But the fucking drawing says, welcome back. It's really cute. And Doreen is like, I helped her with the writing, but she did the faces on her own. So Will is looking down at the drawings, and then all of a sudden he rips up the fucking paper. Oh my God, poor Kaya, yo. She looks so shocked and hurt when he's ripping up the paper. I was like, damn, Will, that's a little aggressive. The fucking kid is right there. So not only does he rip up the paper, but then he fucking throws the ripped pieces of paper at Doreen. They fall on Kaya's head as they fall on poor Kaya. She didn't deserve that. Oh, that reminds me of a time something similar happened to me. I was thrown ripped pieces of paper. Quick mini story time. So the same shit happened to me. Some bitch ripped and threw paper at me. And I threatened to slap the shit out of her. You know what I'm saying? She said go ahead. So I obliged her request. You know what I'm saying? And we got into a fight. I didn't win the fight. You know what I'm saying? But we fought nonetheless. And the moral of the story is, win or lose, fight the good fight. Okay? So the pieces of paper fall on Kaya. She's innocent. She didn't deserve that. You know what I'm saying? So Will gives Doreen a look like he ain't playing no games. And he tells her, who killed my wife? And Doreen is like, I don't know. And Will looks around and then down at Kaya. And then he puts his hand on Kaya's head and he says, all it takes is one drug bust. And the kid's gone, Doreen. You stay with B. Smith. You've got a day to get me some answers. And then he leaves. And Doreen picks up Kaya and she leaves the yard. And she just looks fucking frightened, okay? She's scared. She don't know what she's going to do. So now, back in B. Smith's house, we see a picture of Debbie on a mantle, and we hear the phone ringing. We see Debbie. She comes out of her room to pick up the phone, but Harry stops her. And Harry's like, I'll get it. He picks up the phone, and he's like, hello? And B's like, hello? And Harry's like, B? And B says, can I please speak to Debbie? And Harry's like, she's in her room. Meanwhile, the bitch is standing right the fuck in front of him. So we know at this point that Harry's full of shit. And he's just like trying to stop B from talking to Debbie. He motions for Debbie to go into her room. And she goes into her room. You know what I'm saying? So B's like, can you get her for me? And Harry's like, she's locked herself in. She won't come out. She won't talk. She won't eat. And B's like, what have you done? And Harry's like, what have I done? Debbie failed her exams. And B's like, oh, shit. And Harry's like, what did you expect? She's copying it from the kids at school. She can't hack it. And B's like, did you speak to the principal? They're supposed to be looking out for her. And Harry says, of course I bloody did. So B's like, please, Harry, just put her on. Remember what we said. We're supposed to be keeping things normal. And in that moment, we hear a click on the line. And Harry hears it, B hears it. And B's like, Debbie, is that you? And Harry's like, it's not. Do they record these phone calls? And B's like, I don't know. And then Harry says, there's a lot we need to talk about, honey. I'll come up for a visit. And he hangs up the phone. B hangs up the phone. She pauses at the phones thinking about what just happened, and one of the inmates shoves her to the side. And B just looks at her like she's fucking crazy, and she walks away. And as she walks away, we see that right behind her is Doreen giving her the look of death. You know what I'm saying? So meanwhile, in the governor's office, Vera is giving a mini speech to the main staff. Everyone's there except for Will. In this scene is the first time that Linda makes an appearance on the fucking show. So Vera's frazzled. She's fumbling her words. She's trying hard to find the proper words. And she's just a fucking mess. So Vera's like, filling in for Mrs. Jackson, even temporarily, has been a challenge. So I hope I can rely on your support. Again, at this time, I think the additional security measures we've put in place are addressing any concerns. And Linda's like, yo, you try walking the compound knowing there's no guarantee that it's not going to happen again. And Vera's like, well, that's why you patrol in pairs. And Linda's like, all they need is 2 shivs. And Vera's like, we've refocused the security cameras on any trouble spots, keeping an eye on the potential instigators of the riot. So basically, Vera's just telling them, I'm doing my best, even though I know that my best isn't good enough, but I'm trying, okay? Linda's calling her out, like, listen, no matter what, it's not safe. If these bitches want to do something to us, they can do something to us. So in that moment, the door opens. No knock, no nothing, and a man walks in. So Vera's like, the general manager will be on the compound over the next few days, and she motions towards the bald guy as being the general manager, who we all know is named Derek Channing, okay? So it was Derek Channing that walked into the fucking office rude as fuck without knocking. Listen to me, if you're gonna walk into a door, knock on the door. Que te cuesta en tocar la puerta? You know what I'm saying? You want to just walk in and listen. Listen. So Vera goes on to say, regarding the investigation into the riots, Mrs. Jackson's death is still ongoing. Vera puts her head down in this moment, and she continues talking, and in that moment, Will walks in. But Vera don't see him because her fucking head is down. And she's still talking. She's like, at this stage, it's unclear whether it was a murder or an unfortunate accident. And then Fletcher clears his throat. He's like, and he looks at Vera to try to get her attention so she could shut the fuck up, because Will is there. And he don't want Vera to rile this motherfucker up. So Vera hears Fletcher's clearing of the throat. She looks at him. She looks up. She sees Will. And she's like, Will, welcome back. Everybody, Will is back. Like if they can't fucking see him standing there. And Erica says, what's up? Welcome back, Will. So Derek Channing is telling him, I appreciate you coming back on board. And then he goes on to say, one thing I'd like to achieve while I'm here is getting rid of that media mob camping outside. So don't give them anything they can write about, all right? Any statements are to come from Vera. So Derek Channing is basically telling them, Vera's in charge here. I don't want nobody talking to the press. The only one allowed to speak with the press is Vera. He looks at Vera and he was like, you haven't spoken to them yet, have you? And Derek is like, well, we need to give them something positive. So what have you got? And then Erica, this whole time, is just eyeing the general manager. This whole time, like she's got something to say, but she don't say nothing. That's the end of that scene. So meanwhile, in the library, the women are all seated. They're taking an English course with this teacher whose name is Stephen, okay? So the teacher, Stephen, is like, he's talking his shit about, vocabulary and boosting their vocabulary and words and blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? And in walks Derek Channing, and Erica Davidson, okay? So Erica's like, Stephen was one of my first appointments, and he's made incredible progress with the women's vocabulary and reading. And Derek is like, good to hear. Then in walks Frankie, and she sees Erica, and she says, here already? And Erica's like, and this is Frankie. Actually, Frankie has just completed her HOC, and that's encouraged a lot of the other women to enroll in the class. So Frankie's like, yeah, but I'm your star pupil. And Erica's like, no one comes even close. I've been tutoring Frankie for the last 12 months. And Frankie's like, tutoring, dating, same. And Erica's like, very different. And she looks at Frankie like she want to smack the shit out of Frankie for saying that. And Frankie's getting a kick out of the entire thing. You know what I'm saying? When I first saw this scene, I said to myself, are these bitches fucking or are they not? Like, are they messing around or aren't they? At this point, I'm like, yeah, something's going on. It's not just flirting. These bitches, they meet up, you know what I'm saying, behind the bookshelves, and God knows what they're doing. I was convinced at this point that they were, you know, doing things. So then Erica looks at Frankie. She's like, actually, I have to postpone today's session. And Frankie's like, oh, well, I guess I'll just have to play with myself. And Erica, again, is not pleased by that comment. So Erica, Frankie, and Derek, they all laugh real quick about what was said. And then Erica and Channing leave. So now Erica and Mr. Channing are walking the halls of Wentworth. And Erica's trying to convince him how her programs are there to help the women and reduce the fucking recidivism rates. You know what I'm saying? She's telling him it's not just the educational programs. There's coffee courses, self-esteem classes, interview techniques, dance classes. She's basically trying to kiss his ass into thinking she's capable of being the new governor. So Mr. Channing is like, the public will be out for blood if I gave the governor's job over to someone whose vision is trotting out well-groomed, dancing baristas back into society. You want this job, Erica? You're going to have to be much smarter than that. Meanwhile, back in the yard, Will's there looking around when all of a sudden, B. Smith walks out into the yard. Will sees B. B sees Will. Fletcher then comes up to Will and says, you didn't let me know you were coming back. Will says, have you heard anything? And Fletcher says, from the women? Will is like, women, cops, whoever. And Fletcher's like, no, mate. You heard Vera. Cops still don't know if it was deliberate. And Will is like, do me a favor, okay? Spare me the bullshit. She had a knife in her fucking chest. And Fletcher is like, in the middle of a riot, okay? Now, we don't know what really happened. And Will is like, it doesn't take a genius to work it out. End of scene. So now we're back in the VI room, and we see Harry waiting for B. Smith. So B walks in, goes to the table, and she sits down. No hello, no hug, how you doing? Listen, because I know she wouldn't want to hug him, but if they're trying to act like everything is normal and your husband comes to visit you, would you not give that motherfucker a kiss and a hug? I would think so, but she didn't do that, okay? B's only concern is Debbie. So she sits down and she's like, is Debbie here? And Harry's like, the cops are re-interviewing a bunch of people. And B's like, why? And Harry's like, the neighbors, they dragged in some of the guys from work, asking them questions about us, our marriage, about me. Now, you know I don't like people nosing around. B could give two fucks what Harry's saying, and she's like, where? Where is she? Does she know I've been calling? Is she getting my letters? And Harry's like, I'm only here to make sure we're all on the same page. I mean, sure as hell can't talk about it over the phone. And B's like, it's been over a month, Harry. I promised I'd be there for her. And Harry's like, well, it was a stupid thing to do. And B is like, Harry, I have to see my daughter. And Harry's like, it's not going to happen, so don't start up again. I'm only doing this for Debbie because she begged me. So B, in this moment, has a shift in personality. And she looks at Harry, she smirks, and then she chuckles and she says, nah, you're doing this for yourself. You know the cops wouldn't be talking to everyone again if they didn't think something was going on. You'd rather everyone think you tried to top yourself than find out exactly what type of guy you really are. No. This is about you, Harry. It always has been. Now, Debbie needs me. And guess what? I'm still her mother. And Harry looks pissed off like he wants to beat the shit out of this bitch right then and there, but he knows that he can't, okay? So Harry's like, but you're not there. I'm the one who's got to clean up this mess. Debbie's been through hell, and every time you call, things get worse. She's a wreck. So stop calling. Stop writing. Won't you think about what's best for her? That's what you should have done in the first place. And Harry gets up and he leaves, motherfucker, trying to make B believe that it's best to just stay out of Debbie's life. Oh my God. So meanwhile, back in H1, B goes into her cell. She's looking down at the photo of Debbie when all of a sudden, what happens? Doreen comes from behind B, okay? She grabs her, she yokes her up and puts a fucking shiv to B's throat. And she's like, you've got to tell me, B. You've got to say what happened. And B's like, Doreen. And Doreen is like, I'll hurt you. I don't want to, but I will. And B's like, Doreen, what are you doing? And Doreen is like, you tell me what happened to Miss Jackson. I can't do it. I can't reenact these scenes. Hold on, let me try that again. You tell me what happened to Miss Jackson. And B's like, I didn't see anything. And Doreen is like, you were there. And B's like, you were there too. And Doreen is like, I didn't see anything. Tell me. And B's like, I don't know. Doreen, please. And then Doreen cuts herself. She's holding on to the shiv so fucking tight that she cuts herself. The pain snaps her out of this fucking crazed state that she's in. And she's like, her hand is bleeding, her hand is shaking. She's looking at her hand like, oh my God, what have I done? What am I doing? And then, she starts crying and she says, B, I'm sorry. And she runs out of the fucking room horrified by the lengths that she's willing to go to protect her daughter. You know what I'm saying? So she runs out of B's cell horrified. And then that was it. B's left, shocked and shaken. So the next scene is Doreen in her cell. We see her board with a bunch of pictures of Kaya and flowers and shit, drawings that Kaya's made. And we see Doreen sitting on the bed. And she's got her hand wrapped because she's bleeding, you know what I'm saying? And she gets a flashback. We see a flashback to her past. So we see a flashback. We see an outdoor house party, right? A bunch of fucking people holding red cups. We all know what's in those red cups. A red plastic cup at a party means there's booze in there. So they're all drinking, smoking cigarettes, dancing, jumping around. And all of a sudden, a curly-haired chick goes up to Doreen with a baggie of pills, and she gives one to Doreen. I'm guessing that they were, paraphernalia of some sort, all right? So Doreen takes her fucking pill and washes it down with a shot of liquor. So we see them dancing and taking more shots and smoking and shit like that. And we see that Doreen is very, very pregnant. She's pregnant and she's smoking and she's drinking and she's popping pills. So Doreen then grabs a set of keys and starts walking off. The curly-haired woman, who we all know is Doreen's sister, she tells her, yo, you can't drive. And Doreen is like, I'm fine. And the sister's like, come back inside. And Doreen is like, I won't be long. Do you want macas or not? And the sister's like, all right, just don't forget the nuggets. I'm assuming macas is probably a slang term in Australia for McDonald's. So the flashback is over. We're back in the cell with Doreen when all of a sudden Liz, she comes inside and B is like right behind her. So Liz is like, Doreen, what's going on? Oh, sweetheart, what's happening? We go back to Doreen's flashback and we hear beeps, like machines beeping. And we see an emergency room. You know what I'm saying? And that's all we see. So now we're back in Doreen's cell. And Doreen is like, Mr. Jackson, he's going to take her away. I've got to find out who killed Mrs. Jackson. So then Doreen looks at B and she says, he reckons you know something. And B's like, Doreen, I don't know.
Doreen says, you have to tell him or he'll take Kaya.
And B's like, how? And Doreen says, he'll plant something. So then Liz explains to B, oh, look, if they find drugs in here, Kaya's out of jail for good. And Doreen is like, Kaya was right there. And he said he'd get rid of her right to her face. And Liz is like, now listen to me. Listen, he can't do that, right? So I'm going to go and I'm going to talk to the governor. And Doreen is like, no, you can't. You can't tell the governor. If he finds out that I daubed, he'll take her away. Please. I can't stuff up again. So now we're back to Doreen's flashback and we hear the machines beeping and we see a bloody-faced Doreen laying on a fucking stretcher being wheeled somewhere and they're giving her fucking oxygen, all right? So now we're back in the cell. You know what I'm saying? Flashback is over. We're back in the cell and Doreen is just looking at B and B walks out of the cell. End of scene. So now we're back in the yard and we see some of the inmates doing yoga, playing cards, and then we see Will. There are still no signs of the geometrical heart that I love so much in this episode 2. We're going to keep looking for its first appearance, don't you worry. So B walks out into the yard and she sees Will. She walks right up to Mr. Jackson and she says, Mr. Jackson, can I have a word? Look, I didn't do it. Mr. Jackson, she was already gone. I've given my statement to the police. They've cleared me. Doreen, she'd do anything for Kaya. Anything. But she's not up to helping. And Will is like, well, if you didn't do it, find out who did. And then Will just out of nowhere grabs B by the arm, and B's like, yo, let me go. And Will's like, don't worry, a night in the slot might help jog your memory. And B's like, I didn't do anything. Fletcher, who's also out in the yard, sees all of this shit happening, and he's like, all right, stop, let her go. And then Fletcher walks up to Will and B, and Will is still not trying to let her go. So Fletcher's like, let her go, Mr. Jackson. Will lets her go, but he stays grilling her. He's like, I'll let you go, but I'm going to stare at you this entire time. He lets go of B, but they stay looking at one another. And Fletcher's like, go back to your unit, he tells B. So B leaves, and Fletcher's like, mate, you're way out of line. And Will is like, they know who did it. And Fletcher's like, even if they do, you think they're going to tell you, huh? And Will is like, well, I'll make them. And Fletcher's like, if Vera or Channing see you like this, you'll be out. And Will is like, I need the rest of that CCTV footage. And Fletcher's like, there's nothing else, mate. That was it. And Will says, there was nothing on it. And Fletcher's like, I've already stuck my neck out. Now let the cops handle it. And Will is like, the cops are doing jack shit. And Fletcher's like, you need to go home and calm down. And Will yells out, those bitches are going to get away with it. And Fletcher's like, well, while you're like this, you're not helping anyone, are ya? And so Will breaks down and he starts crying. Poor Will, you know what I'm saying? Listen to me. It's always sad when a grown man starts to cry. I hate it. So Will starts crying and Fletcher's like, I know. It's okay, mate. Hey, go home, yeah? I'll cover for you, all right? Go on. Go on, mate. Just go. So Will, he leaves to go home, and the inmates are looking at him and his crying ass. And, you know, these women, bro, they're heartless. Because look at their faces. They look like they don't give two fucks that he's crying. Or like they're enjoying the fact that he's crying. It was terrible. It's now nighttime in the halls of Wentworth when all of a sudden we see a tossing and turning Tony on her top bunk. And we hear laughter coming from below. It's Doreen and Kaya. So Doreen and Kaya are there, you know, laughing and shit. Kaya got a new teddy bear. Doreen is asking her, is this a new teddy bear? Is that a present from your grandma? Kaya's like, yep. And Doreen is like, oh, can he be my friend too? And did you see the bears in the zoo and the tigers? And Kaya's like, yep. And Doreen is like, and what noise do tigers make? And Kaya screams, right? So in that moment, Tony got pissed off at the screaming. And Tony's like, yo, can you keep it down? And Doreen is like, oh, we're playing. And Tony's like, yeah, well, I'm trying to sleep. And Doreen is like, it's not even 7.
Tony says,
do I give a fuck? Just shut up. And I was like, yo, this bitch got a lot of mouth. She got a whole hell of a lot of mouth. I remember thinking the first time I saw this. And I was like, listen, somebody needs to smack her. Because, oh my God. So Doreen is like, Kaya wants to tell you about the zoo. And Tony says, I don't give a fuck about the zoo. Please, I'm just trying to sleep. So in real life, right, if somebody was to speak that way towards someone else's child, especially in prison, Tony would have got grabbed by her ankles, thrown off that top bunk, and beaten to a bloody pulp right in front of Kaya, okay? That's what would have happened in prison in the real world. But this is Wentworth. So Tony didn't get hit, but she deserved to get punched right in the face. So Doreen is like, why don't you go find Auntie Liz? She'll give you a bicky, which I'm assuming is a biscuit, right? So when Kaya is gone, Doreen's smiling, watching Kaya walk away. And once Kaya's gone, her smile is replaced by a look like she means business. And the first time that I watched this scene, I was like, oh, that's it, Tony. Your ass is about to get beat up because you done fucking crossed the line. And so Doreen is like, it's her birthday, Tony. And Tony's like, just shut up. You know, at this point, I couldn't stand Tony. I was just like, somebody please beat her ass. Or I'm going to jump through this fucking television set and do it my damn self. So she's like, just shut up. And Doreen is like, she's been freaked out for weeks about those police dogs. She deserves a bit of fun, but you're so off your face all the time, you don't even care. And Tony's like, I helped out with the cake, didn't I? Bitch! With the cake. Oh, I don't like her. So Doreen is like, she needs looking after. And Tony's like, how about you just relax, eh? And stop acting like you're her bloody mom. And when I first saw this, I was like, oh, shit. Doreen is not Kaya's mother? Oh, my God. Tony's her mother? And it was like all the pieces fell together. And I was just horrified knowing that Tony was someone's mother. I couldn't believe it. And Doreen is like, well, if you were a proper mom, I wouldn't have to. So the truth comes out. I was like, that's right. You tell her, Doreen. And Tony is like, oh, come on. You love it. You fucked up with your own kid and now you're stealing mine to make yourself feel better. Truth hurts, don't it? Bitch, the punch that I'm gonna give you in your mouth, that's what's gonna fucking hurt. So Doreen storms off. My thoughts, man. Tony is a fucked up bitch. And what she said was so mean. You know what I'm saying? And I wish that Doreen would have grabbed that bitch by her forehead and slammed her off the top bunk onto the floor and stomped her out. Talk shit now, bitch. So Doreen in the next scene is sitting in the unit having a cuppa, looking really fucking sad. You know what I'm saying? Sad music starts playing and we see more of her flashbacks. It's Doreen. She's in hospital, okay? And we see her pregnant belly. She's being given an ultrasound. She looks scared and worried. And the nurses are there looking at the screen. Then they look at each other. Doreen looks at them. They've got these faces like something ain't right. You know what I'm saying? End the flashback. Back in the unit, Doreen's there sitting, crying. The sad music is still playing. From the clip of Doreen crying, we see Will at his laptop at home, and he's looking through pictures of him and Meg. You know what I'm saying? He's clicking through all these photos with this sad music. He's crying and sniffling. You know what I'm saying? Then all of a sudden, the music begins to intensify. And he's seeing something in these photos, but I wasn't sure when I first saw this exactly what the fuck is it that you see. But he sees some shit. The music is intensifying. He gets up, he goes into a little cupboard, and he pulls out a box. He goes back to sit down in front of the laptop, opens the box, he's looking through fucking papers, he pulls out a paper, and on that paper, it was like a list of all the things, the items that were found on the body of Meg Jackson at the time of her death. He's looking at all of her belongings, right? And in these pictures, we notice that what he's seeing in these photos, it's a bracelet that she's wearing. She's wearing a gold bracelet in all of her photos. We see this gold bracelet in episode 1 when she's putting the handcuffs on B. Smith in the bathroom after B. Smith threw up the little red balloon filled with gear. We see the bracelet, you know what I'm saying? So he's looking on the list and it says, you know, besides all of the clothing that she was wearing, the only jewelry she had was her wedding ring. There was no bracelet on that list. And then we see the picture up close of her arm and the bracelet. So that's it, you know what I'm saying? That's the end of that scene. So now we're back in Wentworth and Vera's in her office when all of a sudden here comes fucking Erica, okay? Erica gets on my damn nerves. So Erica's like, Vera, I need some signatures for these incident reports. Vera's like, yeah, right, add them to the pile. Hopefully by the time I get through all of this, the media will have gone. And Erica's like, just give them a soundbite. That's all they're after. And Vera's like, no, I can't. The whole idea of facing cameras and recorders and then Erica interrupts her and she's like, it's part of the job. And Vera's like, yeah, which everybody hated. Meg hated it. Dalton hated it. I don't remember a governor who didn't. And even if I could go out there, I would have no idea what to say. And then suddenly Will comes barging into her office like a bat out of hell, out of nowhere, dressed in his regular clothes. Okay, he came straight from his house to the prison. And he says to Vera, you need to get the police back and authorize a ramp now. And Vera's like, what? And Will is like, look, they didn't give me her bracelet. When they buried her, they gave me her wedding ring, but no bracelet. She was wearing it the day she died. She always wore it. And Vera's like, yo, the police have already searched the compound. And Will is like, but they didn't know what they were looking for, okay? Whoever killed Meg took that bracelet. And Vera's like, are you sure it's not at home? And Will is like, she was wearing it the last time I saw her. It went missing here. So then there's a quick few seconds of silence and Vera calmly says, a ramp is going to cost a fortune in staff and cleanup. The effect on the women. And Will is like, we're talking about the fucker who killed Meg. Don't you want to find her? And Vera's like, of course I do. And Will is like, then authorize a ramp. And so he's huffing and puffing the whole entire fucking time. Erica's just there listening. And she looks at Will, then at Vera, like she's wondering what the fuck is going to happen here. So we find out exactly what's going to happen in the next scene. Now we're in Sallyport, and what's happening? The cops are all arriving at Wentworth with the fucking police dogs, and Vera and Erica are out there waiting for them. You know what I'm saying? So she authorized the ramp, Vera did. So Vera just looks worried, like she's just like, oh boy, now what's going to happen? And Erica's like, You're doing the right thing. Vera looks at Erica like, whatever, bitch. And she walks over to the cops. And then Erica walks in the opposite direction and she pulls out her fucking mobile to make a phone call. She's calling some bitch named Bernadette and she's telling her, so yeah, it's been a long time, eh? So yeah, about that favor you owe me. So this bitch owes Erica a favor and Erica's calling her to collect. I don't like Erica. And at this moment, I was like, oh, Erica, you can't be trusted. Now, back inside the halls of Wentworth, the cops and the dogs are at it again. You know what I'm saying? Terrorizing the women, the cells, ripping shit apart, looking for the bracelet. So now we go from there. We're taken out into the fucking parking lot where we see Will pacing back and forth, smoking a cigarette. I couldn't believe it. I was like, okay, so I think in season 1, Will Jackson was a smoker. So now we go back inside the halls of Wentworth and the cops are doing what they do, fucking shit up, looking for the bracelet. So back in the parking lot, Fletcher comes out and Will says, did they find it? And Fletcher's shaking his head, no. And Will is like, why can't they just do their fucking jobs properly? And Fletcher's like, it's probably been flushed away, okay? And Will is like, are they doing strip searches? And Fletcher's like, Will, you've gotta stop this, mate. And Will is like, they need to do internals. I've got to tell Vera. And he goes to like storm back into the prison. So Fletcher stops him by putting his hands on his chest. And he's like, you ain't fucking going nowhere. You need to calm the fuck down. So Fletcher tells him, Vera's under enough pressure, okay? Screaming at her isn't going to help you. And Will is visibly pissed that Fletcher is touching him. As I would be. I don't like to be touched. Like, don't fucking touch me because I don't want to be touched. Do you know what I'm saying? Will says, get your hands off of me. And he pushes Fletcher's arms off of him. Fletcher grabs Will by the face and says, listen, mate, you need to calm down, all right? And Will is like, get the fuck off of me. And he starts walking towards Wentworth. And Fletcher grabs him and he's like, hey. And Will turns around and punches the shit out of fucking Fletcher. And Fletcher almost falls. Like he falls but doesn't hit the ground. Like he stops himself from falling. And he pops back up quick. And they stare at each other. You know what I'm saying? And then Will gives up. And instead of storming into the fucking prison, he storms into his vehicle. And that was the ending of the fucking scene. So the next morning in Wentworth, we see Vera holding a newspaper. The newspaper is called the Herald Sun. On the cover is a picture of Erica Davidson looking really pretty, along with a headline that reads, public safety is our priority. Is this the new face of prison reform? Oh my God, can you believe it? We also learned that cheap flights are available to Singapore and Hong Kong starting at $9.95. And I'm just like, how in the fuck is that cheap? $995 is not cheap, all right? For a flight? That's highway robbery. She's looking at the newspaper and Fletcher's in there with her and he tells Vera, she's gunning for your job, mate, referring to Erica. And Vera slams down the newspaper and crosses her arms and she's like, I thought she was my friend. And Fletcher says, Erica eats friends for breakfast and shits them out for lunch. And Vera's like, I know I'm not as good as Meg, but I could be if they give me a chance. And Fletcher's like, in my view, you wouldn't be acting governor unless they thought you were up for it. Okay? Words of encouragement he was giving her. So in this moment, we hear Erica, excuse me, and then she knocks on the door. Bitch, learn manners. You knock on the fucking door first, carajo, and then you come in. What's wrong with people? They just want to walk in. Knock on the fucking door. And Erica's like, excuse me, sorry. Vera, I am so sorry. I've only just seen this, referring to the newspaper. So Fletcher looks at Vera like, don't believe a word this bitch says. She's full of shit. And then he leaves. And Erica's like, you know what the press are like. They're just looking for an angle, that's all. And Vera's like, tell me you didn't have anything to do with it. And Erica pretends to be shocked. And she's like, what? Vera. And then Vera's like, sorry. Look, this is the last thing I need right now. And Erica's like, yeah, I understand, but... And then out of nowhere, we hear Channing's voice say, Vera, what's this about a ramp last night? Another one who likes to walk into offices without fucking knocking. So Vera's like, I didn't have a choice, sir. Will came to me with fresh evidence. And Derek is like, which failed to materialize. And Vera's like, I still felt I had to authorize it. And Derek is like, this isn't going to do your budget any favors. And Derek tells Erica to come with him. Erica looks at Vera and tells her, I'm sorry. And then she follows Channing out the door. So in this next scene, we're in the halls of Wentworth, you know what I'm saying? And I noticed that the walls were like flat, sheet-rocked walls as opposed to the teal bricks we all know and love. You know what I'm saying? I don't like these flat walls. It's bricks or nothing. So in the halls, Derek is like, are you serious about this? And Erica's like, yes, I am. And from what I heard this morning, the response has been positive. And Derek is like, it's a vague promise that your programs will provide public safety. And Erica says, I see it as a clear vision for the future direction of Wentworth. They walk into an office that looks really fucking fancy. It's probably like a conference room of some sort. And Derek is like, I've got the commissioner breathing down my neck and he's been pressured by the minister. Look, this prison is more than just your programs. It's a business. So Derek is like, blah, 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 your programs, it's a business, and ultimately we're answerable to the public. So this is Erica's moment where she's going to try to convince him, I am the best one for the job of governor. And Erica's like, I have a double degree in law and social work. And he's like, I'm well aware of your background. But your work here the last 18 months has been in a bubble. And Erica says, this, and she points to the newspaper, this is my work. This is the first positive press we've had in months because I've come up with a strategy that's palatable to the public. Yeah, I know. They don't want to hear about rehabilitation and what it costs. They want to know that the criminals are locked up and they can sleep safely at night. So I'm selling it to them as money well spent to ensure their safety when the women are released. She goes on to say, I've spent years. She goes on to talk a lot of fucking shit and basically is telling him, when I do the right thing and this fucking prison gets turned back around, you are more than welcome to buy me a fucking drink. She's very confident, okay? A little cocky, if you ask me. So, Channing looks like he's impressed, but at the same time, he's thinking, I'll buy you that drink, all right? And then I'm going to bend that ass over. That's what I'm probably sure he was thinking. So that was the end of that scene. So now back in H1, The Price is Right is on TV again, and we hear Liz calling out for Frankie. She's like, Frankie, mail. And so Liz is looking through all of Frankie's mail, and she's got like a ton of fucking mail from reality TV fans. She gives her the mail, and that was that. So Liz tells B, we need to get a move on if you want to use the phone. And B's like, oh, I think I'll give it a miss today. Meaning, she's not going to make any phone calls today. So Liz says okay, and she leaves. And then Doreen is there, and she asks B if she's okay. And B doesn't answer her question. Instead, she asks her, you want a cuppa? 1 sugar, right? And Doreen nods yes. So this scene right here, this is the scene that made me love Doreen. At first, I was unsure. I was like, Doreen is like a whiny ass bitch. She should have punched Tony in the face and she didn't. Like, I don't know how I feel about Doreen. Like, I kept going back and forth with Doreen in episode 1. It ended with me liking her, but then come this episode when she was like, she's whiny and I don't like it. But after this scene, I understood Doreen and I liked her moving forward. I think she got on my nerves a couple of times after, but for the most part, I like Doreen, So Doreen is like, look, I'm really, really, really sorry about yesterday. And B's like, mate, you were fighting for your kid. I would have done the same thing. And B is like, how is Kaya? And Doreen is like, oh, she's still a bit sucky. She hates the dogs. And then B says, how long have you looked after her? Doreen, since she was 2, Tony made me care her when she couldn't cope. B, she's a gorgeous kid. Joel, yeah, I wanted to make things right. I wasn't there for my baby, so I figured, I should be there for her. And B's like, where's your baby? And Doreen is like, she died. So now we go back to Doreen's flashback where we see her pregnant belly once again with the sonogram jelly, and the sonogram is being done on her. The nurses look at the heartbeat monitor and there's no heartbeat. The baby is gone. So the male nurse tells the female nurse, poor kid had no chance with a mother like that. We'll have to induce her. And we see Doreen crying. She hears them and she starts crying. And I remember thinking that nurse should be fired for saying that. You keep your personal opinions about the patients to yourself, okay? That's not how you fucking handle yourself as a nurse, talking shit about the patient when their baby just died. She didn't get in the car and set forth to kill the baby. You know what I'm saying? You got a lot of fucking nerve, nurse. So Doreen, back in the cell now, Doreen tells her, I had an accident when I was pregnant. I hurt people in another car. That's why I'm here. And Doreen then says, I killed my baby. And B's like, oh, Doreen, I'm sure you didn't kill. And Doreen is like, no, I did. I was trashed. I just wanted to have fun. You know, they said I still had to give birth even though she was dead. I didn't believe them. I could still feel her move when I moved. Then I saw her after she was born. My little girl. She just looked like she was asleep. And I remember thinking, maybe if I can slap her on the bum or something to wake her up. But they just wrapped her all nice in a blanket. Then they covered her face. And so Doreen is crying, you know what I'm saying? And then she gains her composure and she says, it's good coming in here. Got me straight. Then I met Kaya. She just smiled at me and it felt like I had a second chance, you know? For the last few months, she's been struggling a bit. Maybe you were right. Maybe this isn't the place for a kid. I mean, how do you even know if you're doing the right thing for him? And B's like, I don't think you ever really know. You just do what feels right in your gut. And Doreen then puts this face like she's confused. And she's like, yo, you're so full of shit. And I was like, what? And then B says the same thing. She's like, what? And Doreen is like, that's not what you're doing to Debbie. You've stopped calling her. And B's like, she's been through enough. I can't keep putting her through anymore. And Doreen's like, your gut says to keep calling her though, right? Smith is like, yeah, but it's just not fair on her. And Doreen is like, you're her mom. She loves ya, and you've given up. How do you reckon she feels? So B looks at Doreen, and then she walks out of the unit without saying a word. So now we're on the phone line. And, you know, Liz is explaining to one of the inmates, like, how to knit. When all of a sudden, Jax comes, pushes that inmate out of her way, and takes her place in line. And Liz looks like this fucking bitch, always swinging her dick around. You know what I'm saying? So Jax asks Liz if the screws found what they were looking for. And Liz is like, how in the fuck would I know? And Jax is like, you have your little meetings. And Liz is like, I'm a peer worker, not a dog. And Jax is like, I doubt they're going to find what they're looking for now. You know what I'm saying? Riots, all that chaos. So Liz looks at Jax with suspicious eyes. And Jax says, I was in my unit. I have witnesses. Besides, I never get my hands dirty. And Liz is like, well, you did with Frankie. And Jack is like, yeah, well, I always make an exception for Francesca. Where is the bean flicker? Bitch, how dare you? You know what I'm saying? Bean flicker. She has such nerve, Jacqueline Holtz does. Jax picks up the phone to make a damn phone call. Boomer comes to the scene and sees Mr. Fletcher. You know what I'm saying? And she's like, hey, Mr. Fletcher, ooh, where'd you get the boo-boo? And when we look at him, he's got a big-ass black eye. Like, one whole half of his face is bruised up because Will done punched the shit out of him. You know what I'm saying? So Fletcher tells Boomer a cricket match. And then Will is now in the hallway. He heard Boomer asking Fletcher what happened to your face. And he's like, you always were a shit batsman. And they walk towards each other. So now they're looking at each other. Will is like, drink on the weekend? And Fletcher's like, only if you're paying. They both smile and all is forgiven. So meanwhile, back in the yard, the women are playing basketball and we see Doreen and Kaya sitting and Kaya's coloring. And so Doreen grabs one of Kaya's sketchbooks and starts looking at the drawings. And it's a picture of two houses. Both of the houses have bars on the windows. You know what I'm saying? So Doreen keeps turning the pages. She's seeing more houses with bars on the windows. And then she sees a drawing of the police dog behind bars, and Kaya's behind the bars along with the fucking police dog. And so Doreen is, you know, the wheels in her mind are thinking, oh my God, you know what I'm saying? So out of nowhere, Tony pops up and she's like, I hope there's no fucking animal noises tonight. So Doreen looks at her like, why you gotta curse in front of the kid? And Tony's like, yo, relax. She's heard it before. And Doreen is like, you wanna help us draw? And Tony's like, do I look like I wanna draw? Oh my God. She looks high as hell. She's stoned, all right? And she's like, yo, this is some good shit. And Doreen is like, where'd you get it? And Tony's like, why do you care? And Doreen is like, because I'll bloody kill whoever gave it to you. And Tony's like, the smack fairy. The smack fairy. Bitch, Doreen gives her this look like she wants to fly across that table and rip her fucking face off. And so she looks at Fletcher. She looks at Tony. And then she's like, Tony? And Tony's like, what? And Doreen is like, do us a favor? Nip down to H4. Martha owes me rollies. And Tony's like, do it yourself. I'm off my face. And Joy's like, I'll give you half. And Tony's ass is like, half? Yeah, all right. And she gets up. If you remember in episode 1, Liz tells B. Smith that Doreen has stopped smoking cigarettes. And it's like walking on eggshells. So when she tells Tony, you know, Martha owes me some rollies, I was like, oh, God. Doreen is up to something. So Tony goes to walk to H4, and as she's walking off, she stumbles, and Fletcher sees. So Fletcher's like, hold up, Tony. And Tony's like, I've got to go to the toilet. And Fletcher's like, come here. come here. And Tony's like, I've got to go to the bathroom. And Fletcher looks at her. He snaps his fingers in front of her face. And he's like, you're pinned, aren't you? Off your fucking head. And in the distance, we see the teacher, Stephen. We see him in the yard. And he's looking on at what's happening with Tony and Fletcher. He looks a little concerned. And then he leaves. So Fletcher's like, I'm going to do you a favor, okay? I won't search you here in front of your daughter. But you're going to walk quietly with me out of here, all right? Let's go. So they start walking off, and Tony gives Doreen this fucking look like, bitch, you set me up, bitch. And now they're going to take Kaya away. Because remember, if Tony is found high, Kaya got to get out of the prison. She can't keep her daughter no more. So we know what's happened here. Doreen chose to give Kaya a better life by way of setting up her mom to get caught high. That way Kaya would have to leave the prison. She did what she had to do. You know what I'm saying? So Doreen looks at Tony being taken off and she says to Kaya, grab your rec set, sweetheart. And Kaya's like, are we going to Grandma's? And Doreen is like, yeah, we're going to Grandma's. It's going to be a long visit this time. And Kaya's like, okay. So meanwhile, inside Wentworth, we see Vera and Channing talking inside the office, but we can't make out what they're saying. And we see Erica standing outside their office looking at them, but she can't hear what they're saying when all of a sudden, Stephen, the teacher, comes to talk to Erica. Stephen, the teacher, comes to Erica and he's like, Erica, I've got to talk to you. And Erica's like, not now, Stephen. And Stephen's like, it's important. And Erica's like, Stephen, please, not now. And Stephen's like, you've got to help me. And so she looks at him and she's like, all right. So they walk into the hallway and Stephen's like, I did something stupid. She swore she wouldn't get caught. I never would have done this. And Erica's like, what are you talking about? And Stephen is like, Tony Goods. We had an arrangement. It was only a few times, I swear. And I was like, hold up, an arrangement? So Tony was exchanging gobbies for gear. Is that what I'm hearing? And Erica's like, you supplied her? Back in Vera's office with Channing, and Vera's like, well, I guess I wasn't good enough. And Erica's like, it's always a difficult situation. The department decided to take things in a new direction. And Vera's like, yeah, well, I tried my best. And Channing is like, your contribution won't go unnoticed, Vera. You will be reinstated as deputy. And Vera is just looking like pissed. Like, oh, yeah, demote me. I'll go from governor to deputy again. Big fucking whoop. That's what her face said. So now we're back to Erica and Stephen. And Erica's telling him, you're going to make a career change. Do I make myself clear? And Stephen is like, what if it gets out? Erica's like, it won't. I'll make it go away. Now get your things and leave the prison. And Stephen's like, I'm sorry. And Erica's like, get out. So now Channing opens the door and sees Erica. And he says, Erica. So Erica walks into the governor's office as Vera is walking out. And he tells her, you look nervous. You know what I'm saying? So now back in H1, we see the TV screen. And it's Channing, Vera, and Erica that are on the screen. So Liz is like, Frankie, you're going to want to see this. So all the women are there gathered by the TV. Kim, Boomer, Liz, Frankie. So Channing is on the fucking thing giving a speech. And he's like, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming today. I have an announcement regarding the permanent appointment of governor for Wentworth Correctional Center. And blah, blah, blah. He thanks Vera very much for her hard work and commitment during the last few days. You know what I'm saying? And then in H1, Liz is like, oh, she looks nice, doesn't she? Referring to Vera. So Channing is like, now may I introduce you all to Wentworth's new governor, Erica Davidson. So in H1 now, we see the reactions of the women finding out that Erica's a new governor, and Frankie smiles really big, and she lets out like this laugh, like, oh shit. So then Erica goes on to thank the masses, and Vera's in the background looking at Erica with this look like, yo, both you and Derek are so full of fucking shit, you know what I'm saying? And y'all make me sick. And we see Will, now a clip of him in his house watching or listening to what's going on the TV while he's, you know, getting some lines of white stuff ready for him to do things with, okay? Erica's still giving her speech. You know what I'm saying? She's like, I want you to be able to walk down the street, take your kids to the park, and not worry about what might happen. You know what I'm saying? I want you to feel comfortable and not afraid if you come across one of our women in your day-to-day lives. And back in H1, the women hear this and they erupt in laughter. And Frankie's just staring at Erica on the screen like she's mesmerized by Erica's face. You know what I'm saying? I mean, she is quite lovely, but that's neither here nor there. This is the final scene of episode 2. It's a musical montage. Let me tell you something. In season 1 especially, not just season 1, I'm going to say all the way until season 5. Like 6, 7, and 8, the music was a little different. But from seasons 1 to seasons 5, you know how they always ended it with a song? 9 times out of 10, the songs that they chose to play made me fucking cry. I'm very sensitive, okay? So the sad fucking song is playing. I'll leave the link to the song down below in the description box so you can hear it as well. And we see Doreen hugging Kaya on the visitor's floor, saying goodbye. We see a woman who I'm assuming is Kaya's grandmother. You know what I'm saying? And then we jump to B. Smith on the phone lines, and she's calling Debbie. So the phone is ringing, and Debbie, we see her in the house just looking at the phone ring. She was afraid to answer it, maybe, I don't know. We hear the water running, so we know that Harry's in the shower. You know what I'm saying? So Debbie never picks up the phone, so B hangs up. But she calls again. And this time, Debbie picks up the phone. Oh my God, what a glorious moment. So Debbie picks up the phone and she's like, Mom? And then B got choked up when she heard Debbie's voice. You know what I'm saying? And she's like, yeah, it's me. And she starts crying. So we see the camera zooming in on Debbie's face and this sad fucking song is playing. They're both so relieved and happy to hear each other's voices. We cut back to the VI floor and Kaya's giving Doreen her teddy bear. Yo. For what was that? So this is the moment that made me cry. So mixed with the song lyrics and seeing Kaya give Doreen her teddy bear, it was too much for me and I started to fucking cry. So Kaya turns and she leaves with her grandma, but before she leaves, she turns around one final time. She blows Doreen a kiss and she waves goodbye. And when I tell you, at that point, I'm just sobbing because, yo, it was such a touching scene. Oh God. So once Kaya leaves, Doreen puts her head into the teddy bear and starts to cry. And that was the end of the episode. Oh my God. That was such a sad scene right there. Kaya blowing her the kiss and giving her the teddy bear. Just, oh boy. It was sad. It was fucking sad. But she did the right thing. Poor little Kaya didn't deserve to be in prison. I'm sorry. She just didn't. All right, world. That was it. That was the ending of the video. I hope that you guys enjoyed taking this trip down memory lane. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, you already know what to do. Like my shit. Fucking, what is it? Oh God. Subscribe to my channel if you've not already. And click the bell so that you can be notified when I post videos in the future. This is the end, world. Goodbye.